Pirates Roundtable Show, featuring Tribune-Review Bucks beat writers Rob Biertemple and Bill West.
Well, Rob, we've seen Garrett Cole twice in a little more than a week.
Yeah.
One guy looked like the ace, the other not so much. What's your early takeaway on Garrett Cole?
It's kind of like the first two seasons with him in a way. I mean, his rookie year, he just, it's a cliche, but he burst on the scene, really, and he gave you every indication that he was going to be that guy, that he was just going to ride that road, and it was going to be a short road to acedom,
yes, or
whatever. But then last year was kind of Cole 2.0. Some of that was the injuries, and some of it was the league counter-punching, So I guess we've seen kind of a mixed bag from him then, and so I'm not necessarily surprised to see kind of the same thing from him in his first two starts this year. But what do you think, long-term for the season with him? Where do you think he can go?
I mean, you have to be impressed by what he did against the Tigers and think that that might be an indication of things to come. If he can keep that, if he can spot the fastball, the four-seamer, as Clint Hurdle has said time and again, he's a fastball pitcher, that's what he does, and it seems to work. And if he can mix in the curve, the only player that put the bat on the ball, I think, through 3 innings was Miggy Cabrera, and that was on a curve that...
he puts every bat on every ball.
Well, that is true, yeah. Hard to make him miss. So I think if he can establish the fastball and then just slip in a little bit of the slider and curve, he could be a force to reckon with, like you said he was 2 seasons ago.
It's something else, too, that Hurdle said yesterday, is that Cole really wants to be a pitcher with power, not a power pitcher. So far, he's a power pitcher.
Yes.
The fastball was 93, 94, first inning, second inning. By the 5th or 6th, he was humping up to 97 at that point. The strikeouts, though, interestingly, kind of came in the middle when he was, like you say, when he was spotting it up a little bit more and kind of figuring guys out. So it's interesting. You would think maybe, as that fastball really started to take off later in the game, he wasn't getting the strikeouts then necessarily. They were coming in the middle innings when he was more thinking things through. That, I think, is a really good sign for the Pirates. More than just the velo, it's the brain.
Right. Well, again, Hurdle talked about him trying to become a master craftsman. So I think that's perhaps the goal of the year is, can Garrett Cole become a craftsman who knows how to mix in all the pitches and not just throw the fastball until it doesn't work anymore.
Not he can try woodworking, maybe make cribs, kitchen tables, that kind of thing.
There's good money in that too, I heard.
Nothing wrong with that. No shame in that.
Another guy that we kind of got a little bit of good, a little bit of bad in the first week is the new $27 million man.
Speaking of money.
Yeah, exactly, Josh Harrison. Any early takeaway from him, and overall, you think a good investment by the Pirates?
Can you believe, just a couple of years ago, this guy, I remember he was a bubble guy coming out of spring training. We're like, Harrison maybe makes the team, maybe doesn't. Last year, he was a bench guy, utility guy, a play a little bit here and there kind of guy, until around the middle of May when some injuries started to pile up and when Pedro just got real funky with it at third base. And then he had to become an everyday guy and, really did a great job, not just at third, but he could have been an everyday guy in left field if they needed it. He could have been an everyday guy at short if they needed it. So that kind of, ability, really kind of rare. There's lots of guys that can play different positions, but to really play them at that high of a level and be consistent throughout the course of a season while doing all those different roles, that's something special. In that sense, it really didn't surprise me that they chose to lock him up, because that's kind of one of the things that they need. A team that doesn't spend a lot of money to get big name franchise marquee guys. He can just say, here's our first baseman for the next deck. But guys you can move around like Josh. Pretty valuable.
Well, again, I think, like I said, he brings so many different tools to the table that if they do have, whether it's an outfielder to say, okay, we don't need him out there anymore. If they have an infielder that comes up through the system and you say, we're safe there, we can move Josh around. So certainly for the investment, you're getting a lot for your money in terms of options. And out of what we've seen him through 1 week, he's shown a little bit of the power, and I think went through a cold streak with the strikeouts for a couple games. But overall, I think I'm with you there. It'll be an investment that's going to pay off for him.
And beyond even just the sabermetrics of it all, is just look at the way he plays the game.
Yeah,
he's the guy. I remember a couple of years ago, he took out Yadier Molina to play at the plate. That's the kind of guy he is. He has hustle on the shirts.
Yes,
there's a reason for that. That's the way he plays, and I think management, even though it's a bunch of eggheads, they really do appreciate the intangibles in the game as well, and Josh brings a lot of that to the table.
If they had a way to measure rundown ability, I think he would score very high on that. So maybe they have such a metric already. I don't know. The interesting thing I wonder about him is the psychology of it. You know, he is one of those guys, and I know Clint talked about you don't play to prove people wrong, you play to prove yourself right. But I do believe there's a motivator in being doubted, and certainly Josh Harrison was in that role to some extent. So now that he is a fixture and certainly someone who isn't going to be back on the bench on again, off again, he's going to have to change his mindset a little bit. He's not trying to erase doubt anymore. Now he's simply trying to be the man that everyone to some degree expects him to. So,
well, I mean, coming off going into the second week of the season, you have two guys who you kind of expected production from, and after slow starts, they've stepped up. So that's from the Pirates' point of view, that's what you want to see. If you can get two guys every week. Maybe then you'd have like 1,000 guys, so you only two every week. But you know what I mean. And that's what they're trying to get, somebody to step up every week. And if somebody tails off, somebody else to step up. I think that's the kind of formula, the kind of algebra they need for success.